In a magnificent kingdom, blessed with fertile ground, forests and flourishing rivers, there ruled a kind king named King Chimi. His subjects adored him for his fairness and kindness, and he, in turn, cared deeply for their well-being. However, despite all his virtues and the love he held for his people, there was a great sorrow that weighed upon King Chimi's heart. He had many wives, each one more beautiful and talented than the last, yet not a single one had given him the gift he longed for the most, a son to be his heir. In the kingdom lived a young woman whose beauty was the envy of her fellow maidens. All men wanted to marry her, and all mothers wanted her for their sons. Her name was Adat, and she was the jewel of the village. She had lost her parents at a tender age and found herself orphaned, alone in the world. Yet, despite her hardships, she possessed a rare beauty that seemed to glow from within. A beauty that left everyone who laid eyes on her captivated. Her smile was warm and radiant, and her laughter was like music to the ears. It was no surprise that Ida's beauty captured the attention of the king. When TJT King first set eyes upon Ada, he knew that she was the one who held the key to his heart. Her inner beauty matched her outer beauty, and he was drawn to her like a moth to a flame. And before long, Ada became the newest addition to the king's court, his most beloved wife. As the king's last wife, she knew of his deep longing for a son. But like the other queens, she had yet to bring forth a child into the world. As the years passed, this unfulfilled desire disturbed the king's heart. He knew that the future of his beloved kingdom was at stake. Without a true heir to inherit the throne, his years of hard work and wise rule would be in vain. In the quiet moments of the night, when the moon hung low in the sky, King Chimi would sit by the window of his grand palace, gazing at the stars and wondering about the destiny of his kingdom. He often found himself lost in thought, pondering on why he had been blessed with so many wives, but denied the joy of fatherhood. The king's concern was not a secret within the kingdom. Rumors of his predicament had spread far and wide, carried on the lips of villagers and travelers who passed through his land. One night, as the king sat gazing at the moon, he realized he could not sit and wait any longer. He made a decision to change his situation and that of his kingdom. He had heard whispers of a renowned herbalist who lived in a distant land with ancient knowledge and abilities. This herbalist, so the stories went, possessed the power to solve any problem. King made a decision to seek the wisdom of the herbalist in finding a solution to his problem. With the first cockcrow, the king summoned his most trusted advisors and declared, "I will embark on a journey, one that will take me far from my palace. I seek a solution to our predicament, a way to ensure the future of our kingdom. I shall find the answer, for the sake of myself and my kingdom." In the days that followed, preparations were made for the great journey. The palace buzzed with activity as messengers were dispatched to gather supplies and assemble loyal subjects to accompany the king. As dawn broke on the day of their departure, the village chiefs gathered to bid their beloved king farewell. They prayed for his safe journey and that he found the solution he was going in search of. After traveling for a long time, the king arrived at the place where the herbalist lived. As the king got closer to the herbalist's home, his heart filled with hope that the journey would bring him the special gift he had been hoping for, a child who would one day be the ruler of the kingdom. On seeing the king, the herbalist greeted the king warmly. The king shared his deepest wish with the herbalist. He spoke of his longing for a child, a son who would be the future ruler of the kingdom. The herbalist listened carefully. Then, the herbalist shared a secret that had been passed down through generations. To have a son, the herbalist said, you must cook a special porridge using a single alligator pepper. Whoever eats the seed of this pepper will be blessed with a son. The king's eyes widened with hope and curiosity. He had never heard of such a remedy before. The herbalist explained that this special pepper had a magical power, and only one seed was needed to work its magic. The king was grateful for the herbalist's guidance. He knew that he had to return to the kingdom and follow this advice. With a heart full of hope and a plan in mind, he thanked the herbalist, gave him the gifts he had brought with him, and set off on the journey back home. Back in the kingdom, the days passed peacefully. Queen Adat, with her kind heart and enchanting smile, continued to bring warmth to the palace. But jealousy fell over the hearts of some of the other queens, especially the oldest queen. They envied Adat's beauty and the king's affection for her. On the day they were to cook the porridge as the herbalist had said, the oldest queen, driven by her jealousy, had a wicked plan. She called for Queen Adat and told her to go on an errand to the distant market to get the ingredients for the porridge and warned her not to send anyone else, but to go by herself. It seemed like a simple task, but it was all part of a plan to keep her away from eating from the porridge. As Adat went to the market, unaware of the plan against her, the other queens gathered in the palace kitchen. They cooked a big pot of porridge, following the herbalist's advice and placing a single alligator pepper into the pot. Time passed, and Adat was delayed at the market, as she had to get the best ingredients as instructed by the oldest queen. But when she returned, she was surprised to see that the porridge had already been prepared and that the pot of porridge was empty and there was nothing left for her to eat. She looked around and saw only scraps of porridge stuck to the bottom of the pot which she ate. Her absence had given the other queens the opportunity to eat almost all of it, leaving her with just the bottom leftovers in the pot. As the days went by, all the queens, including Adat, soon discovered that they were pregnant. The news brought joy to the palace. The oldest queen, due jealousy and envy for Adat's beauty and the king's affection for her, devised a wicked plan. She called the royal midwife one day and said, "Listen carefully. When Adat gives birth, I want you to do something. I don't care if it's a boy or a girl. Take the child's life and make it look like an accident. I don't want Adat's child taking the throne from my own." The midwife was a woman of compassion. She couldn't bear the thought of harming an innocent baby, regardless of the queen's command. At that time, some of the queens gave birth, but they all had daughters and none had a son. When the day of Adat's delivery arrived, the palace was filled with expectations. At last, Adat gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. The child's cries filled the room and the midwife couldn't help but feel compassion for the innocent child. The midwife remembered the wicked command of the oldest queen, but her heart couldn't allow her to carry out such a cruel act. Instead, she told everyone that the baby had not survived the birth. But she carefully took the child away from the palace, promising to protect him from harm. She knew that this child was special, and she couldn't let him be harmed. She left the palace and found a safe and hidden place to raise the boy as her own. As the years passed, the secret of the hidden prince remained safe. The midwife raised him with love and care, raising him to be kind and wise just like a prince, but keeping his true identity hidden. The whole village continued to believe that Adat's child died at birth, and the kingdom awaited the birth of the next royal heir, as all the king's wives gave birth to girls. Little did they know that the lost prince, hidden away from the palace, was growing into a fine and handsome young boy. As the boy grew older, he became aware of his identity. Before the midwife died, she called the young prince to her side. She looked into his eyes with love and sadness. "My dear child," she whispered, "I want you to know the truth. You are not an ordinary boy. You are the son of a king, and it is time for you to go back to your kingdom." With those words, the midwife passed away, leaving the young prince with a heavy but determined heart. He knew that it was time for him to embark on a journey to uncover his true roots and claim his royal destiny. Gathering the few belongings he had, the prince bid farewell to the hut that had been his home for so long. With a sense of purpose, he set out on a journey back to the land of his father, the kingdom he had never known. It was a long journey, but his heart remained set on the kingdom of his father, and his determination to uncover his true heritage burned brighter with each passing day. Finally, one sunny morning, he arrived at the kingdom. But he couldn't help but notice the villagers staring at him with curiosity and whispering among themselves. The resemblance between the young stranger and the king in his youth was clear. His features and mannerisms were the same as that of the beloved king. News of his arrival spread like wildfire, and soon word reached the palace that a stranger who had a clear resemblance to King Chimobi in his younger days had entered the kingdom. The king, now older, was surprised by the news. He summoned the young man to the palace and listened intently as he shared his incredible journey and the revelation of his royal heritage. The king realized that it was time to determine the truth about the young man's claim and to find out who his true mother was. The palace was filled with queens who had given birth to children during the same time, and it was not yet clear which of them was the prince's birth mother. The king gathered all of his queens, including Queen Adat, and the queens stood before the king. King Chimobi addressed the assembly. "My dear queens," he began, "we have been blessed with the return of my long-lost son, a young man who has journeyed far to find his true home. It is now time to determine who among you is his birth mother." He continued, "To do so, we will hold a test. Each queen will prepare a dish of her choosing, a dish she ate during her pregnancy with the prince. The young man will taste each dish, and if he recognizes the one that was prepared by his birth mother, the truth will be revealed." The preparations for the test began. Each queen thought carefully about the dish to prepare. As the dishes were prepared, the palace was filled with the aroma of various foods. The young prince stood at the center of the room. One by one, the queens presented their dishes to him. He tasted each one and searched for a familiar taste that would help him discover his birth mother. The tension filled the air as the prince tasted the dishes one after the other. Finally, it was Queen Adat's turn to present her dish. She presented a bowl of bitterleaf soup and pounded yam, a dish she was fond of eating during her pregnancy. As the lost prince took a spoonful and tasted the yam porridge, his eyes widened with recognition. "This is it," he whispered, a smile spreading across his face. He had found the taste he had been searching for, the taste of his true mother's dish. The villagers who came to observe started cheering and jubilating. The truth had been revealed, and Queen Adat, the beautiful and kind-hearted queen, was confirmed as the mother of the long-lost prince. With the mystery finally solved, King Chimobi embraced his son, and tears of happiness filled their eyes. The kingdom rejoiced in the return of their lost prince and the promise of a brighter future. As the kingdom celebrated, Queen Adat's heart was filled with love and gratitude. She had found her long-lost son. The kingdom threw a grand feast to celebrate the reunion of the royal family. The palace was decorated beautifully, and delicious food was served. Musicians played joyful tunes, and dancers danced in celebration. As the kingdom celebrated, the lost prince learned about his new life as a prince and a future ruler. He was filled with gratitude for the love and care he had received from the midwife who had raised him and the lessons she had taught him. Under the wise and just rule of King Chimobi and Queen Adat, the kingdom enjoyed a time of peace, prosperity, and unity. The lost prince looked forward to the day when he would ascend to the throne and continue the legacy of his loving parents. And so, the story of the lost prince became a legend in the kingdom,